If you'd seen me in this first clip, you wouldn't really think much of it. I'm not doing anything crazy, like doing some full-on entries or connecting corners or anything, just a simple figure of 8 and a bit of donuts. But compared to where I started...
Oh!
Hey, well.
This was a completely different day. So the story goes, I paid £250 for a drift day where they were supposed to teach me the basics, such as donuts, figures of 8s, and do a little lap track that they had built out of cones. But after nearly waiting in 32-degree heat for about 5 hours, I drove for about 5 minutes, and as you can see, I really wasn't very good.
Rather go.
So, instead of booking another £250 drift day straight away, I decided to spend the same £250 on a drift sim. This is literally one day after my failed drift day, and after scrolling all night on Facebook, I found a banging deal. Once finding it, I said I'd pick it up the next day, and it was already at my house, set up, and I was driving. And I honestly couldn't be happier. And 1 month later, I was completely different. So, for a really long time, I've enjoyed drifting entirely, from watching YouTubers like Night Ride, Animal Z, and Jimmy Oaks and things. It's just my favourite style of driving, and it just, the type of cars that are in the kind of scene are just insane to me. And because my love for this grew so much, I wanted to try it out for myself really badly. Because watching it online is one thing, playing a game is another thing, but actually sliding a car on a track, smelling the clutch and the rubber burning whilst you're spinning a car sideways is just a totally different feeling, and I really needed to experience it. Once we got to the track in Swaffham, the plan seemed perfect. At the start was 6 passenger laps, and after this I was absolutely buzzing. Like, this sent my excitement through the roof. I was just dying to get in those cars again. So after those 6 passenger laps, the waiting began. It was 32-degree heat. I was waiting for 1 hour, then 2 hours, and then it just carried on, and I eventually got to do my donuts, which lasted about 5 minutes behind the wheel, and we cut it off and left. It was one of the hottest days of the year so far, and the cars just kept breaking down. We ran through about 4 of them, and were left with just 1 car. The delays just kept coming up, and so the session just dragged and dragged and dragged. So when I finally got in the car for that 5 minutes of driving, I wanted to put it all out and just try my best. From watching a bunch of videos, you know, I kind of got my hopes up, thinking like, oh yeah, I can handle this, I can do this, and as you're about to see, that just wasn't the case. Borderline, I was terrible. I couldn't hold a donut properly. I was just panicking in the car. I was turning left, right, and I just wasn't controlling it properly. The guy tried to tell me, and it just didn't work in my brain. It wasn't just that the day went wrong. I also felt like I'd left learning nothing, and that my favourite thing in the world was completely ruined. Luckily, LTD actually invited me back for another day, completely for free, because of how the first day went. So because of this, I now had a second chance to redeem myself. And because they wanted us back so quickly, I only had a month to see what I could change. So for the same amount of money, I found a steering wheel, a stand, a pedal box, and a shifter, so I could replicate driving out on the track. So all of a sudden, I had this system that could replicate everything I did out there every single night. So from there on, it was a question of, would this improve my driving, and what could I show on the day? After getting my drift sim, I wanted to try it out, of course, and after seeing videos online and having suggestions, I thought this was going to be easy. It really wasn't. At first, I was doing the exact same things I was doing on that same drift day, just with too much spinning, too much throttle, no control. I just had no idea what I was doing, so I kept giving up pretty quickly. But the only difference was, I could crash this car, I could keep going, with no cost, no fear, and just no hassle. And after a few times of asking people for tips and tricks, the only thing that just kept popping up over and over again was just get your seat time. And they were completely right. All you need is seat time for these things, and you just have to keep practicing over and over. You can watch as many tutorials as you want, but until you ace it, there's nothing else to do. And so once I realised that, after a few nights, I started to get the hang of things, and things were connecting. I was understanding how to catch the wheel when you had the right angle, I was doing donuts, I started to figure out my figures of 8, and I already felt like I made more progression than I did on that track. And so finally, I felt a little bit of fulfillment for what I didn't get on that day. And so after doing the same things over and over and over again, I felt like I was actually getting the hang of it. So before going back, this is what the sim will help. Firstly, it's the steering. On the first day, I just kept trying to fight the wheel, and there was no counter steering. I wasn't letting it loose. I just kept trying to turn it left and right and just not letting the car move freely. So on the sim, I was able to watch some videos, let the wheel go, counter steer, and grab it at the right angle. Secondly, there's throttle control. In the real car, I was either fully on or fully off, just either stalling the car or just absolutely limiter bashing the poor thing and just destroying it. On the sim, I learned that you can actually control the speed of your car when coming off the throttle and coming on it, which really helps you to control it more. And thirdly, but almost most importantly, it gave me so much more confidence whilst inside that car. On the sim, you have no fear of cost, damage, or your own life. The sim obviously didn't help with any of that fear, but it made me more confident in the car, which made it less complicated for me. So instead of thinking too hard about it, which makes you just overcorrect or just get scared about it, things just kind of flowed in my mind, and it made it so much more enjoyable. But there's always something that the sim rig can't actually teach you, where driving a real car is always going to come through. It can't teach you how violent the cars are, it can't teach you about the change of grip so violently, and it definitely can't teach you how the pressure of someone next to you that you don't know and you're completely new to driving. So actually on the day, I had no idea if any of this was actually going to transfer. So after about 20 hours of the sim rig now, we're fast forward to a month later when I'm back at the track. And straight away, the day felt completely different. And I mean, most likely because it was about 5 degrees colder, which was so much nicer. But my mood was also just completely different. The weather was much better, I felt calmer, and I just felt like the day was going to go so much better. So for my passenger laps, my donuts, my figures of eights, and my track bit, I had this one guy, and his name was Corey. He was my instructor. And honestly, he was such a sound guy. He was relaxed, encouraging, and he just made the whole experience 10 times better. He never made me feel stupid or anything for doing anything wrong, and every time I messed up, he always gave me something really simple to just focus on, and it always changed how I reacted.
So look out the mirror?
No, below the mirror.
Below the mirror, okay.
And I mean, you can already tell how much of a legend it is because of this 360 entry he just did on the passenger laps, first time ever meeting him. Like, what else can you think of the guy? So once he showed me how to do it himself with like one hand whilst flicking his hair back, it was time to actually see if the sim finally helped. At first, of course, I was still really nervous about getting in this car and seeing if all of these hours that I've put into it was just a complete waste of time. And obviously, as expected, the car felt completely different, as this wasn't one I trained with or even driven in a new drift car. But after a few bits of driving, I actually started to get the hang of it. I wasn't panicking as much, I was catching the wheel, and with Corey's instructions, I was actually starting to connect some things. And then even when I messed up, he was right there just telling me what to do, and I quickly corrected my mistakes. So, here's the comparison. This is day 1 and this is day 2. As you can see on day 2, I'm not perfect, but it's an absolutely massive improvement in my opinion. I had more control, I was spinning out less, and I definitely had more confidence, and to be honest, having all of those things is the key to drifting well. Now, I didn't just buy the sim rig because I thought it was going to make me into some pro drifter. I bought it because I genuinely wanted to progress in this hobby, and this seemed to be the key. I genuinely think it has made a huge difference to my driving. So that finally begs the question, is sim drifting the same as real drifting? Is it worth it? Is it too much of a price difference? Should you do it? Yes, you 100% should be buying a sim if you want to get into drifting properly. Are they the same? No, not even close. But the driving style is so similar, and the control of the cars, and especially if you're in games like Assetto Corsa, they're so realistic that it almost feels like the real thing. Real cars are louder, noisier, they don't feel the same, and of course there is the massive fear factor. But a cheap sim rig can really help you learn the basics. It helped me understand things like steering, throttle control, and just how the car actually spins itself. But more importantly, it completely changed how I felt that second day. Because on the first day, I felt frustrated, annoyed that I'd waste my money, and I just completely thought that drifting was done for me. On the second day, I left only wanting more. And that is honestly probably the most important difference for me. For something that I loved so much, I was so disappointed to leave with a bad feeling about it. But with 1 month and a £250 drift sim, I felt like I could do this really well. So yeah, the sim rig didn't teach me how to drift, but it definitely helped me learn. That's the end of this one. I'm definitely going to be making a drift series where I show my progression and how the car is going to progress, and you guys can watch along with me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.